Before we start this video, I'd like to say rest in peace to Keiji Fujiwara, the voice actor for Ardyn. You will be missed, good sir. Hey guys, this is Princess here, and in today's character analysis video, we are going to be taking a look at the new story character, which is Final Fantasy XV's Ardyn. We're also going to talk about Maria's EX+, and we will also be talking about Rinoa's LD weapon. And to celebrate the arrival of the new story character and for the new story chapter, we're also getting a raid event where you fight a Planesgorger that's accompanied by X-Death. So let's get started. So looking at Ardyn's profile, his crystal affinity is yellow and he uses swords. His spears are A, C, and E, and his roles are melee, attacker, delay, and turn. So going over to his stats, at level 1 he has 900 HP, 150 initial brave, 550 max brave, 175 attack, and 170 defense. At maximum level though, he gets 10,308 HP, attack goes up by 3,542, his max brave goes up by 11,270, attack goes up by 3,286, and his defense goes up by 4,376. So looking at Ardyn's first skill, he has Warp Strike, which is a 2-hit melee brave HP attack. This raises brave based on the max brave after the HP attack when breaking an enemy, and this will grant him 1 level of Spectral Charge per 4 turns. And Spectral Charge is really unique, where it raises his brave based on max brave at the start of his own turn. It raises the brave limit in excess of max brave. The effects increase with each level, and the limit is up to 3. And when Spectral Charge is at 3 levels, he will trigger an additional follow-up attack, which is an extra 2-hit melee brave HP attack. I forgot to talk about this, but if you have the Warp Strike extension on Ardyn, it will become a triggered 3-hit brave HP attack, so now he does 3 brave hits instead, and Stolen Brave goes up to 120%. His second skill is called Aura of Darkness. It's a 3-hit AoE melee brave HP attack that deals split HP damage and grants Shadow Step for 4 turns. With 3 levels of Spectral Charge, of course, Ardyn will trigger a follow-up attack, and the Warp Strike extension will also make it so that the brave hit is up to 3 hits now, and he can deal more damage, and has a 120% max brave overflow. Now, when you break an enemy while having the Shadow Step buff on him, Ardyn will get a free turn. It doesn't work in burst mode, but it will grant a free turn after his burst mode ends, and then Shadow Step buff will raise his max brave and his attack. Then for his C65, it's called Break Reset Slash. It's a 2-hit melee brave attack that will cancel the target's break status so that you can break him again. So it's pretty much like lightnings. So now going over to the extensions, you get 1 extra use of Warp Strike. Warp Strike will also have 4 brave hits added and will deal more brave damage and has a 150% max brave overflow. You have the additional follow-up attack where it's now 3 brave hits and then the melee HP attack with a 120% overflow. Spectral Charge will turn Brave Attack into Brave Attack Plus, which is now 2 Brave hits that will deal more Brave damage, and it raises Brave based on max Brave when breaking a target. It also changes his HP Attack into HP Attack Plus, which is a 2-hit melee Brave HP attack with a 120% max Brave overflow. It raises Brave based on max Brave when breaking a target after the HP attack, and then triggers an extra attack if he has 3 levels of Spectral Charge. With the Aura of Darkness extension, he gets 2 additional uses, and it will add 6 Brave hits and will deal greater Brave damage, and it has 150% max Brave overflow. Then going to his preferred artifacts, the artifact passives you want to go for are Attack 108, Max Brave 330, and his C50, which is Breezy Bearing Up. Moving on to Ardyn's gear, his 15 CP weapon is the Rakshasa Blade. So when using Warp Strike, you get a Brave damage boost. It raises Brave by 20% of HP damage dealt, and it grants an extra turn for Spectral Charge. His 35 CP weapon is called the Divine Blade. So Aura of Darkness will get a Brave damage boost. It deals more Brave damage on single targets, and it grants an extra turn for Shadow Step. Then we have his EX weapon, which is called Ifrit's Sword, and this will grant him the EX skill Rising Phantom. So he will re-break enemies, similar to Vayne's EX, and it's a 3-hit AoE melee Brave HP attack. It raises Brave damage on single targets. It has a 120% max Brave overflow. It deals split HP damage and grants 1 level of Spectral Charge for 4 turns. And again, if you have 3 levels of Spectral Charge, he will trigger a follow-up attack, and this will also become Rising Phantom Plus as well. Next up, we have his LD weapon, which is called Katana of the Warrior, and this will grant him the LD skill Dark Tornado. So this drops his HP all the way down to 0. It raises his Brave based on the HP reduced and has a 120% max Brave overflow. And then he follows up with an 8-hit AoE melee Brave single target HP attack. It raises Brave damage on single targets. It has a 150% overflow. It will deal 50% splash damage, and it will grant him Overkill for 4 turns, which raises his max Brave and his attack. And while the overkill buff is active, it prevents Ardyn from dying, so he's basically immortal. And this will also restore 1 HP when overkill cancels, which is kind of unnecessary because what are you going to do with 1 HP? And then once you use his LD skill, if you have the spectral charge at 3 levels, he will trigger a follow-up attack. Then we have his burst weapon, which is called the Blade of Ruin, and this will grant him the burst skill Royal Retribution. It's a 15-hit full AoE Brave HP attack that raises Brave damage on single targets. It cancels a break after the HP attack, and then the burst effect, it raises the party's max Brave. It grants allies Brave based on his own max Brave at the start of the ally's turn, and the burst effect boosts when breaking an enemy up to 2 times. Moving on to his armor, his 35 CP armor is Ardyn's coat. This will add 220 to his max Brave and 72 to his attack. And then his 90 CP armor is Ardyn's hat, which is that fedora that he wears. It adds 680 HP and 110 initial Brave. And then once you realize it, it will add 220 max Brave and 84 defense. Moving on to the EX passives, at 1 out of 3 you get Mighty Rising Phantom, which raises Brave damage either with Rising Phantom or its plus variant. At 2 out of 3 you get Spectral Charge Longer, which adds 4 turns to Spectral Charge. And then at 3 out of 3 you get Rising Phantom Recast Up, which will raise his recast speed. Moving on to the LD passives, at 1 out of 3 you get Mighty Dark Tornado, which raises the Brave damage dealt with Dark Tornado. At 2 out of 3 you get Overkill Longer, which will add a +5 duration to the Overkill buff. And then at 3 out of 3 you get Charge Dark Tornado, which will just add 1 extra use to his LD skill. And each time you limit break this, it will raise Ardyn's attack. Now moving on to the realized passives. So at 0 out of 3, you get Rising Phantom Advanced Buff Up. So when you're using Rising Phantom or any of its plus variants, it will raise the overflow limit and adds 2 turns to Spectral Charge. And then at 1 out of 3, you get Sakura's Price Extension Attack Boost Up. So this raises Ardyn's attack and his max Brave when he equips his EX passive, his EX Plus, or his passive ability, Sakura's Price. And then at 2 out of 3, you get Spectral Charge and Shadow Step buff starting. So once you start the quest, you get 3 levels of Spectral Charge for 8 turns and Shadow Step for 8 turns. Then at 3 out of 3, you get Rising Phantom Brave Hit Plus Force Advance Plus Plus, and there is a lot to go over for this. So Rising Phantom becomes a 4-hit AoE melee Brave HP attack that will deal more Brave damage. With 5 levels of Spectral Charge, Rising Phantom will change into Rising Phantom Plus Plus. So you break all enemies again, and it's a 4-hit AoE melee Brave HP attack delivered 3 times. It deals more Brave damage and adds a free skill on the next turn. His Brave attack changes into... Alright, so now moving on to the next slide. So Spectral Charge will change Brave Attack or Brave Attack Plus into Brave Attack Double Plus, which is a 3-hit melee Brave HP attack. It raises Brave based on the max Brave if the target is broken. And same thing with HP Attack Plus. This will become HP Attack Plus Plus, which is now a 3-hit melee Brave HP attack with a 150% max Brave overflow. It raises Brave based on max Brave if the target is broken, and then it will trigger an extra attack with 3 levels of Spectral Charge. Then we have his Ace Spear, which is Break Raging Attack Boost Up. So when inflicting Break, this will raise max Brave in attack by 2% up to 5 times once per turn, but this doesn't stack. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Rinoa's LD, which is called the Cardinal, and this will grant her the LD skill Wishing Star. It's an 8-hit AoE Magic Brave single target HP attack. It raises Brave damage on single targets. It has a 180% max Brave overflow. It deals 50% splash damage, and it will grant Angelo's Warmth for 8 turns. Angelo will recover for 5 turns, and will remove the Angel Wing buff on her, if she has it. So Angelo's Warmth will change all of Rinoa's attacks into magic attacks. It raises her magic attack and her max Brave overflow limit, and it restores party Brave and HP, but this doesn't stack with the same buffs. Moving on to the LD passives, at 1 out of 3 you get Wishing Star Power Angelo Recover buff start. So you begin the quest with Angelo Recover for 5 turns. Then at 2 out of 3, you get Angelo's Warmth Long, which extends Angelo's Warmth by 8 turns. And then at 3 out of 3, you get Wishing Star Charge, which adds 1 extra use of Wishing Star. And each time you limit break her LD, it will raise Rinoa's attack. Alright, so now we're going to move on to Maria's EX+. So at 0 out of 3, she gets Explosive Bow, Brave Hit plus Force, Advance Explode All Plus. So her Explode debuff is now extended to all enemies, and the Anti-Imperial Force will turn her HP attack into HP Attack Plus, which is a 2-hit range Brave HP attack that grants allies Brave based on the HP damage dealt. Then at 1 out of 3, you get Concealed Passion Extension Attack Boost Up. So this will raise Maria's Max Brave and attack with active buffs, and by equipping her EX Plus or her passive ability Concealed Passion. And then at 2 out of 3, you get Explosive Bow Recast Up, Proper Shot, and Arrow Rain buff starting. So you begin the quest with the Max Brave Up, Brave Regen, and Anti-Imperial Force for 8 turns, and it also raises Maria's recast speed. Then at 3 out of 3, you get Explosive Bow Brave HP Hit plus Explode Up ability Aspire plus plus. So Explosive Bow will become a 6-hit range Brave HP attack that's delivered twice. It deals more Brave damage. The first HP attack will do 50% splash damage, and then the second attack will deal 50% HP damage dealt to all targets. Explode will get a moderate Brave boost and a free skill use on the next turn. And then with the Anti-Imperial Force buff active on Maria, Brave Attack and Brave Attack Plus will change into Brave Attack Plus Plus, which is now 2 Brave hits that grants Party Brave based on attack. HP Attack will change into HP Attack Plus Plus, which is now a 2-hit range Brave HP attack with a 120% max Brave overflow, and it grants allies Brave based on the HP damage dealt. And then Maria's Spear is a C spear called HP Heal Initial Attack All Shorter. So after recovering HP, it raises the party's initial Brave and attack by 5% for 3 turns. So with that being said, we're now going to go to Opera Omnia JP, and I'm going to showcase Ardyn's skills. I'm going to show Renoa's LD, and somewhat of Maria's EX+. So give me a quick second. Alright, so we are on the last node in Opera Omnia JP. We're on the finale for... well, part 1 of the finale for Arc 2. So here's my Ardyn over here. I have practically everything on him. I have his 15 and 35. I've got his LD on him, and I have his burst weapon on him as well, so I can show that off. And then I have Renoa over here. There we go. And just to show, yep, there's her LD passive right over here. And then I have Maria as well, but her EX Plus is just at 0 out of 3, so she's not going to get, like, the full thing that I mentioned earlier. Alright, so we're going to demonstrate with Warp Strike first, because I do want to show off the free skill use that he gets. By the way, get used to hearing Ardyn saying Zan Nen a lot. You're going to hear that a lot. Okay, so now we're going to do Aura of Darkness. And because I've got 3 levels, well it's now 4, levels of Spectral Charge, he will do follow-up damage. Alright, oh sweet, now we're on Renoa, so I can show off her LD. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, she rides on Angela, which is kind of weird. Alright, so now we are going to go in with Ardyn's Burst. Alright, so let's start with his LD, actually. So his HP drops all the way to 0. And as long as he has the Overkill buff on him, he is immortal. He won't die to anything, which is fantastic. Alright, so yeah, now let's do his EX. It's kind of weird doing this on another Ardyn, though. And there we go. Alright, so while this is going on, let's talk about should you pull for Ardyn. Honestly, it's not just for Ardyn, though. Like, well, I mean, yeah, Ardyn, he can, like, re-break with his EX. LD prevents him from dying. He gets free turns from breaking enemies. So, Ardyn is practically amazing, though. And then for some of the other stuff, like Renoa, she now functions as a healer and a more, like, offensive magic attacker with her LD. And then with Maria, her EX Plus is really great as well. Provides a lot more Brave Battery. The extension on her Explosion debuff is really good. So yes, I would say pull on this banner. Ardyn is like a really big help for you, and Maria and Renoa can also pull some weight. So now let's do the finishing burst. I love that laugh. Alright, so that pretty much covers up everything for Ardyn and Renoa and Maria. So thank you guys very much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.